Darkness Humanities, Death's Rattle, a 3rd edition short story by Brian Shinomiya. Dax awoke on the steps as fear shot through his veins while he looked around. He couldn't see anything in the darkness. Dax heard Shepard snap into consciousness, scanning the darkness for mutants. "I can't see anything," Dax hissed. Suddenly, paralyzing fear took over him as he realized that there could be a monster lurking in the shadows. Something could be getting ready to dismember him right now. All he had was his gut instinct. After years of being a sentinel, nothing helped with the fear of being attacked and snatched away by the darkness itself, the never-ending abyss. "Shepard, I can't see a damn thing. It's all very unsettling," Dax muttered, showing fear in his voice for the first time in his life. It was no easy task snapping back to reality when the realization that Tara was no longer with them settled in. It was even more unnerving.
"Get your shit together, Dax. Now is not the time. We need to move,"
Shepard snapped, almost slapping Dax in the process. Paralyzing fear meant nothing more than a free meal for the chaos around them. Shepard refused to allow that to happen. Not to him, at least. The duo hastily made their way up the stairs. Dax tried his best to block out the loss of Tara. He knew she was gone for good. Only mourning her death in the back of his mind made the journey even more strenuous. Both he and Shepard had to be alert. Dax stopped 2 steps away from the top of the landing upon seeing Shepard halt. The stairs gave way to a large abandoned complex. Wires and ballast from the fluorescent light hung from the ceiling. File cabinets and desks littered the hall, and doors either stood open or stuck through the wall like throwing daggers. "What the hell happened?" Dax asked as he tried to take in the destruction before him.
"The world came to an end,"
Shepard replied. They had seen horrific scenes before, but nothing like this. Remnants of human existence were scattered everywhere. Dusty old papers were in disarray and on the floor with a coating of cobwebs. Metal tablets were either upside down or knocked over with bite marks embedded in them. Shepard and Dax soon realized that nearly all the walls were covered with a thick layer of unusual brown liquid. It didn't take an expert to figure out that it was dried blood. As if this wasn't enough to send chills up their spine, the lack of noise surrounding them was nerve-wracking. The only audible thing they could make out was the fresh blood dripping from the ceiling, hitting the cracked concrete floor every few seconds. "Shepard, this looks like we entered hell itself," Dax said, as he took a deep breath, attempting to calm his already long-gone nerves. The more he looked around, the more he realized just how bad things turned out. Doors had been ripped from their hinges and thrown through the adjacent walls. Sharp claws had marked every wall. Whatever happened here was filled with rage and projected such violence, Shepard and Dax felt the fear sink in. "Do you think this is it, the epicenter?" Dax asked, voicing what they were both afraid of. Some rooms looked like small labs, a place of experimentation and tests.
"I do not want to think about it,"
Shepard said, his confidence faltering. "If this was the epicenter, who knows what might be dwelling here?" Dax said. It was a strange sight to see for Dax and Shepard. The once confident duo tiptoed around as if they did not want to wake up some great evil around them, a monster that could have been sleeping for decades. After all, they were just visitors, and disturbing the host could mean certain death. That is, if there was a host to begin with. However, they did not want to take their chances and find out. Overconfidence was one of the quicker ways to end up dead in the demented world that they inhabited. The two moved in the only direction they could, forward, and through the spider web of wires and chunks of metal hanging down. Dax scanned the open doorways as he walked. The complex seemed abandoned by all forms of life, but he couldn't take any chances. Shepard came to a sudden halt. He looked up, noticing that something was moving. Shepard quickly took the handle of his saber. He looked closer. It was small. Eyeing the creature, he moved towards it. "Shepard," Dax hissed. It suddenly dropped from the ceiling. Shepard lunged forward and swung his saber, activating the blade and cutting the small mutant in half. It was a hand-sized spider monster that fell dead to the floor.
"All clear,"
Shepard said, locking his saber. Cautiously, the two made their way down the hall. Uncertain of their destination, they kept progressing. Chewed bones littered the floor, some more organized than others, forming piles of human remains. Rib cages, skulls, and legs, like a grotesque jigsaw. It was disturbing to look at, even for the battle-hardened duo. There is only so much a human mind can absorb before shattering to pieces. Dax tried his best to move between the bones, but they were too many to make a dent. As he stepped, he made the biggest mistake of kicking a skull. His eyes watched in disbelief as it rolled away, slowly turning into bits and pieces as it reached its destination. Man, I feel like whatever I touch in this place, it falls apart. I've seen some horrible things, but this is making me even more worried. Dax voiced his concerns as Shepard slightly nodded. It wasn't unlikely for him not to say anything. He was the quiet type, after all, but this time it was different. It felt as if Shepard was fighting with himself over something, lost in his head and obsessing over something he was only aware of. Dax wanted to ask him about it, but decided not to. Extra bantering was the last thing they needed now. There was no sign of what caused all of this. Shepard looked at the wall, painted with dried blood. Up ahead was a strange sight, with flashing lights and blue sparks. They had to be extra careful, in case any wire was still charged with electricity. Both men had the handles of their energy sabers ready. Neither wanted to end up like Tara. As quietly as they could, they moved down the hall. There was nothing in the room emitting the light. It was coming from another lab. Glass littered the floor, and bones were piled in the corner. Dax and Shepard left the first complex and made their way down a narrow corridor to a large circular room. The floor they stood on only covered half. Glass tubes lined the walls, reaching up to the ceiling. 10 tubes were on the floor they stood on. The glass appeared to have been shattered a long time ago. Dax walked over to the railing and looked down more tubes that reached deep into the darkness, with no end in sight.
"Dax,"
Shepard said in a tone that made Dax's blood freeze. "What?"
"half of these are empty,"
Shepard blurted, fear seeping out of him. Once again, something he never showed unless danger was around the corner. Dax quickly caught on. It was bone-chilling to see row after row of broken tubes, glassy remains scattered in front of them, as its host had disappeared long ago. They made mutants before people started turning, experimenting with bioengineering, as if they had the right to do so. "This room is massive. I can't see the bottom," Dax huffed as he approached Shepard. They walked up to a tube that had not been broken and still remained intact. When they looked inside, a mummified human-like creature with eye holes covering what should have been the forehead of the skull. 8 small arms seemed to be sticking out of its chest. "Creepy little shit. A friend of yours?" Dax asked as he jokingly hit Shepard's shoulder.
"Wait, you don't recognize your mother?"
Shepard chuckled, losing his focus but for a brief moment, laying his hand on the glass container. Dax noticed it was too late to warn him, as the worm-like creature inside started moving and squirming around, its little arms poking and hitting the already cracked glass.
"Shit, Dax, move!"
Shepard ordered as he pulled his energy saber out. In one swift move, he stabbed the abomination. The creature let out a hollow shriek as liquid started seeping from where Shepard wounded it. "That was close," Dax sighed, easing his jumbled nerves.
I always knew I would not be a big fan of your mother,
Shepard said, inducing humor between the two. He even managed to make Dax laugh. The two left the dead worm to rot in its juices, wondering just what other horrors they would encounter. Neither asked what went on in there. They both knew what this place was, a nightmare factory. Whatever they saw up to this point could not compare to whatever was lurking in the lower levels. The door leading out of the room had been clawed through by something big. The space between the car marks was nearly the length of a ruler. "Shit! I hope that thing is dead," Dax groaned. No one knew the lifespan of the various species, and chances were that the worst ones lived the longest. Nothing in their lives could have prepared them for what was on the other side of the door. Pieces of mutant flesh, their innards mixing up with what was left of the human remains, creating a gooey pool of blood and monster remains. It was sickening to look at, so much so that Dax gagged. He painfully refused to vomit in his suit. No matter where the duo stepped, there was no avoiding the disgusting liquid that stuck to their boots like some sort of rotten glue. This is disgusting. Granted, we've seen too many horrible things, but this is up there, Dax muttered out.
"This is where it started,"
Shepard said bluntly. "Who knows how many more places like this there are," Dax added, rage in his voice.
"Got something you want to say?"
Shepard grunted. "Why?" Dax asked, trying to stop himself, but he couldn't. "Why the hell did they do this?" Dax roared, punching the wall next to him a little too hard. The pain quickly shot up his arm, giving a second of respite. Anything was better than coming to terms with the reality of it all and being forced into it. Why do we have to suffer? They got to see the sun, the blue ocean and grass, and we got a barren wasteland. This is misery. Dax couldn't bring himself to finish his sentence. We did not want this life. We should not have to live like this. After Dax started to simmer down his frustration, the two began to venture off in silence. They had just made enough noise for Dax to ring the dinner bell. With their luck, the complex seemed empty.
"Feel better?"
Shepard asked as the two rounded a corner and came face to face with a horrific sight. A creature with the torso of a man and 4 arms, using them to navigate the floor like a dog, hissed at them with its massive mouth. Its bottom jaw was split where 2 fangs protrude from its top and bottom jaw like mandibles. "Oh, hello, gorgeous," Dax yelled in shock as he and Shepard activated their weapons. With a loud and high-pitched scream, the monster launched its attack at Dax. With his limp still an issue, Dax swung his saber as Shepard stabbed the mutant. The puncture wound injured it enough to save Dax and Shepard. "Nice one," Dax yelled. At that moment, an unexpected visit from 2 more monsters happened. They fell from the ceiling behind them. Shepard, aggressively and without mercy, was pushed from behind by 4 hands as the hungry beast launched its attack. He was now separated from Dax. Forced to retreat, Shepard stabbed, slashed, and did everything he could to kill it, but it was too agile. It jumped from wall to ceiling to floor.
"Stay still so I can kill you,"
Shepard yelled as he backed through more wires hanging down from the ceiling. Dax roared in pain as the mutant jumped closer towards Shepard. It got tangled in the spiderweb of blue, red, and yellow wires. Shepard sewered the mutant's head, kicking it down the hall as its body went limp. Dax howled in pain as he rushed down the hall.
"Dax!"
Shepard yelled, looking for him. He slipped and fell in a puddle of blood as he reached the scene of the battle. Blood ran up the wall and through the ceiling panels. As Shepard got up, he spotted Dax's arm and his saber.
Goodbye, Dax,
Shepard whispered as he ran down the hall. At that point, there was nothing Shepard could do. All he could hope for was that Dax died before the monster started to eat him. Shepard knew he had to make it back to the surface and escape the city. He came to another flight of stairs, beaconing him deeper into the bowels of hell. Shepard rushed down, rounding a corner into an open door. A dim light hung from the ceiling, barely illuminating his surroundings. Shepard looked around. It seemed clear. He realized the doorway had led him into a bathroom. 6 stalls lined one wall, while 6 urinals lined the other. He stepped up to a sink filled with crumbled ceiling panels and shards of broken glass. Shepard tried to wipe away the dirt and dust covering what remained in the mirror. He reached behind his head and unhooked the latches on his helmet. A low hiss filled the room, while the seal of his helmet loosened. Air rushed out of his suit. Shepard dropped his helmet to the floor, as the smell of stale air, mildew, and the sickly sweet smell of rot filled his nostrils. It was a change from the smell of sweaty body odor he had been used to. Shepard actually didn't need the climate suit. He looked at himself in the reflective glass as the dim yellowish light towered over him. His yellowish-green skin looked slick with sweat and the grime that found its way past the built-in air filters of his suit, and his black hair was greasy and stuck to his forehead. It had been years since he'd seen himself. His night-black hair, red eyes, green skin, and purple lips were greeting him once again. He didn't know what he was, but Shepard knew he wasn't human, because the climate suit wasn't necessary to survive. Although he wasn't a mutant, because he could talk and didn't desire the idea of eating humans. Shepard gripped his energy saber and looked into the sink as he heard footsteps rushing down the stairs.
Shit, I found you.
Dax panted. Fear ran through Shepard.
They can't kill me.
Dax panted as he staggered into the bathroom. Shepard struggled to figure out what to do and how to handle the situation.
What the hell? Are you trying to kill yourself? Put your helmet on.
Dax said in a weak tone, yelling upon seeing the dog-headed helmet on the ground. Shepard turned to face his friend one last time. Dax, completely in shock, staggered back, grabbing for anything he could use to defend himself. His hand wrapped around a shard of glass in one of the sinks near him. The shock was so great that he didn't feel the sharp edges cutting into his skin as he gripped the glass harder and harder. Shepard looked at Dax with sadness in his eyes. The poor man was missing his right arm from just above the elbow. Dax had tied a piece of rope around his arm, stopping the blood flow. Unfortunately for Dax, this didn't help much. The puddle of blood under him was growing bigger every second. Drip, drip. The sound of Dax's life left his body with every drop of blood.
You're one of them?
Dax barked.
I am not one of them, Dax,
Shepard yelled back.
Tell me, when have I tried to kill you?
You left me back there and just watched Tara die.
She was already dead, and I got separated from you.
Shepard replied as he took a step towards Dax.
Stay back,
Dax ordered, raising his shard of glass.
I'm not going to fight you,
Shepard yelled.
Then this shouldn't take long,
Dax roared as he rushed his former friend. Shepard stepped to the side as Dax rushed past him. Dax was never good at fighting.
Don't be a fool, Dax. You need me to survive. Look at this state that you're in. You don't have much time left. Please, let me help you,
Shepard begged.
Don't play that empathy bullshit with me, freak. This is all your fault.
Dax snapped as he turned and rushed Shepard once more, barely managing to not slip and fall. The effects of severe blood loss were now kicking in, turning Dax into a former husk of himself. He limped towards Shepard the best he could, squeezing the glass shard so hard that it was almost one with his hand. It took all the effort and hatred Dax had to muster up the strength to not collapse as he charged for Shepard one last time. Shepard only had seconds to react, so he decided to defend himself. He took a shard of glass and charged Dax. Sadly, the promise of a happy ever after was not in the books for these two sentinels. Their deaths are as tragic as their lives, meaningless and violent, only leading to their demise and nothing more. Pain shot through Shepard's body. As Dax impaired his heart, Dax's knees gave out as Shepard's shard of glass pierced his diaphragm. The two men dropped to their knees. Shepard's chin was on Dax's shoulder. His vision was turning black and fuzzy. Shepard spat blood as Dax pushed the glass deeper. Shepard was too weak to howl in pain as Dax twisted the glass. With the last ounce of strength, Shepard pushed his shard of glass deep into Dax's chest as he leaned into Dax. Seconds before, the darkness swallowed him. Shepard felt Dax's full weight slump onto him. The two men who desperately depended on each other in life now found themselves supporting each other in death in a long-forgotten corner of subterranean world. One leaned on the other to stay upright until their bones lay intermingled on the floor, as time reduces them to dust. Suddenly Tara arrived at the bathroom. She looked at her former team members from the doorway. By the chaos below, Tara realized that she was too late to stop them, only making it to see them drop to the floor. She limped into the room, removing her helmet. Tara felt shocked, seeing Shepard's green skin. A dull thud sounded as her helmet hit the floor. She brushed the strands of ice blue hair out of her face. She thought the color scheme of her body was off, fiery orange skin and blue hair. Tara spared one final glance at her former friends as she limped out of the room. A thick puddle of red blood was forming around them.
Come on,
She said to the little green girl she had found hiding in the dark room. She was the same race as Shepard.
don't you dare look in that room.
Tara said, as the little girl jumped at Tara's harsh tone. She didn't need to see Tara's friends like that.
What's your name?
She asked the girl. All the girl could do was tremble. She couldn't answer Tara.
Okay, in the meantime, I'll give you a name.
Tara said, looking down at the girl.
How does Anatus sound?
The little girl smiled, looking up at Tara. Tara knelt down, grabbing Anatu before she could run off.
Listen close. I don't know about your race, but mine lives longer than humans.
Tara said, pulling the girl in.
I lived down here 50 years before the apocalypse. I can't promise you anything, but try to stay close and learn how to fight.
Anatu just nodded, and the two were off.